Welcome to Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, we're going to have our popular financial literacy update, but first, it's been described as bold and audacious. I'm talking about the Wolf budget. We'll dissect what it means for you. Back in a moment.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, we have two reporters here who've been covering the budget. They're on our program frequently. We're delighted that they could come in and help us out, help us understand what's in Governor Wolf's very ambitious and bold budget. That's the way it's been described. Steve Esack, he's writes for the Capitol for the Allentown, on Capitol subject for the Allentown Morning Call. Mary Wilson, Capitol reporter with Pennsylvania Public Radio. You listen to public radio, various stations. She's on their air. All right. Mary, for our viewers, give us the broad view of what is in this budget. Now, it's been discussed all week, and then we're going to pick the pieces apart and talk about what it might mean. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to cut it up. We're going to carve it up.
Okay. Well, as a whole turkey, though, you got a little bit of tax increases. Right. You have a little bit of tax relief, and each component is kind of hooked to another one. Yeah. You know, like carrion. And so it's going to be tricky to kind of dissect this and see how everything links up. The big things that we didn't know about going into the budget address that hadn't been announced by the governor himself, an increase in the personal income tax, right, and a proposed increase in the state sales tax by 20% and 10% respectively. He wants to strike a few more exemptions on the sales tax,
and we'll get into those.
Okay.
In a minute. No. But go ahead.
We already knew about lowering taxes on lowering the corporate net income tax, which is very much disparaged in Pennsylvania because it's at 9.99. He wants to levy a 5% tax on natural gas drillers to pay for education. Wants to pump $1 billion in the first year into schools, and I think $2 billion over 2 years. Wants to restore cuts to higher education within 2 years of the budget. Property tax relief, wants to give rebates, and I think there are two mechanisms he's going to try to use, or he's proposing that lawmakers use to give people a break on their property taxes, and he says that's going to be paid for by the higher income and sales taxes that he's proposing, and that's kind of the carrot to get Republicans to bite here.
When I said bold in it, I don't remember. I've been doing what I've been doing for a long time. I don't remember a budget with so many moving parts, and in addition, as Mary points out, they're linked. Talk about what he wants to do with, for example, the income tax and the sales tax, and how that's linked to what's very popular in this state, which is what?
Property tax.
Yeah, go
reform.
ahead.
Well, all the linkage. I look at Wolf's thing as a Jenga board game. You pull out one piece and everything else can topple down. And the one piece that to me is holding everything together is the severance tax. If you pull out the severance tax, if the Republicans do not do the severance tax, then the whole property tax relief issue kind of falls apart. Because if you remember last year, Mary, the Republicans, a lot of Republicans in this state are pushing what is known as Senate Bill and House Bill 76, which would do what Wolf is proposing. You add in all these items that are now taxable under the sales tax to give people property tax relief. This is not a Democratic issue.
Property tax relief is the key, not severance tax.
No. The severance tax is the key, because if you don't get that, then in those hearings, in those Senate hearings, where I heard, the legislature's independent fiscal office saying, if you go to a sales tax and you take away from the school districts a stable source of income, that's the property tax, and then you put it on a sales tax, which is people's fickleness of what they're buying, what they're selling, that type of thing, it's a lot less stable. That severance tax holds that together, because school districts, the IFO said last year that the school districts will lose money on going to a sales tax. But if you have the severance tax in there, that
so your point is that with the 5% severance tax on natural gas, in a sense, that's really important, because that goes to education, and that would help offset any potential property tax hike? Is that the point?
No. It would offset any potential money the school districts would lose by not getting a property tax, by not
I get your point.
Yeah, so,
I get your point.
There you go.
The thing that's interesting about that theory, though, is that if that's true, Wolf's got a problem because the severance tax is supposed to pay for increases in education funding. It's not supposed to make them whole if they lose money because of property taxes going away.
Well, I'm just remembering what I'm
with you. If that's true.
I've not heard that before. That's an interesting idea, and when you go to these hearings, you hear a variety of views about what it means. But the point about this, Mary, is that at the moment, if you let's say the income tax hike is not done, and I think and there's been various numbers put forward, and there was a statement put out this week by the governor's office, sort of saying, no, the numbers that are out there are not accurate about how much revenue these taxes generate. I thought it was $4 billion. That's with a B. Property tax hikes, income tax hikes I'm sorry, income tax. Yeah, get $4 billion, right?
Right.
Well, if you take that away, then how can you do property tax relief?
Right.
Can you?
Well, if you can, you're going to have to find another way.
Well,
you're right.
I think what the Wolf administration is trying to do is if you add up all of those tax increases, it's 16%. It's $4.7 billion.
It's a 16% increase.
Right. It's a 16 overall.
Overall, that's correct.
And then the Wolf administration would pull roughly half of that back, a little bit. I don't have the numbers
for the property tax
for the property tax. So the state takes 16%. They give a big hunk back, both to the school districts and through the property tax.
We don't understand.
We're going to run to a break. But if you pull that big piece apart, it's inconceivable that you can do property tax relief and then do the other kind of spending that he wants. Think about that. We'll be back in a moment. I want to get into this sales tax bit. There's some interesting numbers here about how much you would pay with the increase in what you buy. We're going to chat a little bit about that when we come back.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. We're getting into the intricacies of the budget. What we're basically trying to do is say this. If Governor Wolf gets the income tax hike, then you all out there get a property tax relief. 50% of the people in the state would get, on average, would get it. It would accrue to $100,000 in income. You would get about $1,000 netted out once you take the income and sales tax hikes. Oh, this is complicated. You would, over $100,000, you're going to pay more. Under $100,000, you're going to get a net increase. Or you're going to get $1,000 more. Is that right overall? Do I got that right?
That's the line from the administration. For right now, yeah.
So that's okay. The point I want to make here is that we've not seriously looked at the sales tax hike. 6 to 6.6. It covers. Talk about some of the items that we would pay an increase on.
So the exemptions would stay for your food, clothing purchases, and prescription drugs. Right. Exemptions would be stricken for things like picking up dry cleaning. There would be a tax increase for your accounting services, legal services. You can imagine how those professionals are taking to this news. Republicans are hitting, cable TV. Republicans are hitting very hard the line that you're going to have to pay more to buy a casket for a funeral service.
Gosh.
So we heard a lot about that on Budget Day.
Gum and candy. I saw
waste collection too. What does Senator Scott Wagner think of waste collection?
There you go. Scott Wagner is a senator from York who owns a waste. Is that it? A company?
Waste, right?
But the whole point is, this would be. I mean, we haven't had changes like this in decades. The tax overall at 6%. Now it's higher in Philly and higher in Pittsburgh, was set, 40 years ago. And now this would be the first effort serious effort in a governor's budget, I think, to, we had some proposals in the past, but sort of not with this degree of specificity. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, going back to, I covered the last two of Governor Corbett's budgets, but if you go back 4 years, you have Governor Corbett's budgets were pretty bleak. Everyone said they were bleak. Yes, lean and mean is a good phrase for that. Now you have Governor Wolf that's coming out and doing the complete opposite, where he's throwing all this new spending in there. The legislature didn't like Corbett over here. They don't like Wolf over here. What do they like? Because the bottom line is, this state has no money. You can see it in the credit reports. You can even see it in how much money the Corbett administration had to borrow from Treasury, $1.some billion just to keep the lights on. They had to take $80 million from the Liquor Control Board early. They had to do all this. You hear Republicans say government needs to spend within its means. It's not even doing that. So the only thing the state can do is, pink slips. Start sending out pink slips. Just pay it all off.
Well,
my last point is Representative McGinnis yesterday said all these pension ideas basically stink. Let's just pay off the unfunded liability. $3 billion some dollars, whatever it is, do it. You know what? And see what
you need
everyone...
money to do it.
Exactly. But
Mary,
so what's the legislature like?
Well, we're going to find... they're not going to do it by June 30. I don't think anybody... All right, Mary, let's talk about the education piece. We're not going to revisit this debate about, with Governor Corbett, whether he cut education spending by $1 billion. We do know that $1 billion in stimulus went away that was used in Governor Rendell's last year in the legislature. They put $1 billion at least $1 billion into the education budget. It went away because it was one-time spending.
Did you say we weren't going to revisit this debate?
I want to make sure that people understand it. We're not saying it was a cut here. We're not going to get into that. What's this budget do for education? What's the governor recommending?
Several $1 million in additional funding for K through 12 schools.
Right.
Wants to permanently close what was known as I believe the charter school pension double dip, which has been a lightning rod among legislators. Basically, in broad strokes, more money for K through 12 education, more money for higher education. State-related and state-owned schools have been seeing cuts for years, or at least been having to maintain, no additional funding. In return for the additional money for higher education, they want to. They're calling on those schools to agree to a tuition freeze, which is something Corbett has also asked for in years past. And the other thing that the Wolf administration is keen on is increased accountability for charter schools, wants to return funding to what was known as the Accountability Block Grant, which helped pay for early education and tutoring programs that had been zeroed out for a time under Corbett, or proposed to be zeroed out for a time under Corbett. The greater accountability for how charter schools spend money, how cyber charter schools spend money, and making sure that schools that are paying tuition to charter schools because they're losing students to charter schools get help with those reimbursements.
We're out of time, but we'll follow up on this. But it is very complicated. It has all these moving parts. Yes or no? Done by June 30. I'll put you on the spot.
Oh.
Unlikely? How about that?
Unlikely, sure.
Unlikely.
Yeah, thanks for answering.
Unlikely. One last point is
quick.
When it comes to higher ed, as a Temple Owl, why does Penn State get $49 million and Temple?
We got a commercial here from Temple.
15.
All right, our popular financial literacy update. We're going to move to something that maybe isn't as complicated as all this budget stuff. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacolalliance.com.
Well, it's Financial Literacy Update time. Joining me is Mike Wishnow. He's often on the program. He's the Senior VP with the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, and Sheba Wallish, she directs card services there. We'll get into credit cards and that in a minute. But, Michael, I want to start with you. Consumer confidence is directly related to whether people spend and whether they save. What do you see going on right now in the economy?
Sure. Well, big picture, Terry, and then the folks talked about the budget right before us. Big picture, the economy is starting to come out of a recession. Consumer confidence, as you said, is getting stronger. Right now, people are saving, so savings are up, spending is up. And if you looked at the last month's revenue estimates from the sales tax here in Pennsylvania, they were up. So people are starting to feel pretty good. The only sort of counter trend is energy. Energy over the last month or so has really gone up. Of course, it went way down, but now it's coming back up. So that may be a little bit of cause for concern, but most of the signs in the economy are positive. Are
folks coming in to banks and credit unions now with? It looks also like housing prices are going up. I mean, are you seeing any bigger interest in borrowing for homes?
Well, yeah, I think purchase money mortgages are up.
Okay.
Car loans are up. So generally, lending is up. But frankly, the mortgage refinancing boom, I think, is behind us.
You think that?
Because rates have sort of bottomed.
Who didn't refinance their house, right? They get a lower interest rate. All right, Sheba, let's do every 4 or 5 months we kind of take a look at credit cards. Give us the trend history, if you will. Is that a redundancy? Trend history for the credit cards and their use. What?
Yeah, the growth is only increasing and continuing to increase. Back in 1980, only 15% of all payments were used with a plastic card. Now it's 60%. And that's only continuing to grow as more people switch to online purchases as well. Last year, it was a $300 billion spent in online payments. So it's just continuing to grow, and that trend is just going to continue to increase.
Yeah. We're going to talk about whether we're ever going to have, whether creded cards themselves are going to go, whether we're never going to see them again and we're going to put our iPhone up. I notice some people do that now. We'll talk about that. Yeah. But there's a huge amount of money that's lost every year that we don't even think about, for the most part, in the aggregate for fraud, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we do think about it more now than we ever have because of all the breaches that have been in the news. But certainly, from a lender's perspective, from a credit union or a bank's perspective, credit card fraud does continue.
And if you have the credit card is with a bank or a credit union, and the consumer, the credit card holder is only liable, is it $50 in most cases? You're the expert, is that right? $50.
At the most, it's going to be $50.
So you all are on the hook, right?
Yeah, more often than not, it's actually zero liability if you report it. Zero liability. Yeah,
all right.
Immediately.
We're going to run to a break. We're going to continue this discussion. We're going to talk. I want to get into whether we're going to throw those cards away and have some other way of whatever we're going to put out there, our iPhones, and make those credit card purchases. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
All right, we're doing our financial literacy update, and I want to talk about, I mentioned this earlier, it's something that is a new terminology, mobile wallet. I love that term. I'm not sure I know I know what it means, Sheba. What's mobile wallet? Help me out here.
Mobile wallets have certainly become more popular lately with Apple, making their announcement about iPay. But really, it's a method of paying through your mobile device.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different players in the market right now. So there's not one clear leader, but Apple has certainly brought it to the forefront of consumers'
What
minds.
happens if the phone doesn't work? and you're in a line and you have 5,000 things and all of a sudden it doesn't come up. What do you do then?
You're probably still going to have your plastic card in your wallet for
there
a
you
while.
go. We were talking about that at the break about, you get on an airplane now, right? And you have, and you use the mobile wallet but it doesn't work. What do you do? So you always...
For now, most consumers will have a backup.
You do the paper, but this is where we're going?
It is. It absolutely is. It's a lot of convenience. So many consumers have that mobile device with them at all times, more than their wallet.
Yeah.
So if they can use that one device for more things.
All right. We've talked about this before, and let's get to the heart of it. Identity theft is very common. You're the victim. What do you do? Help the folks out. What do you do if you're the victim?
Well, the first thing you do is you contact your financial institution and all of your card issuers, and you let them know that your identity's been compromised. Then the next thing you do is contact the credit bureaus and make sure that they put a note on your credit file that your identity has been compromised. The reason there, Terry, is you want your business partners, the people that issue your cards, to be on the lookout. And you also want the credit bureaus to put something in the file so nobody can open a card in your name.
Oh, I get it. So there's no new card. That's a great point. The other thing is that do a lot of people end up making a complaint with the authorities, with the police, or do people just say, well,
depending on the severity, that's something that a financial institution will certainly advise depending on the situation of the fraud. But if you do, it's always good to have a copy of that report. That can help you with the credit reporting agencies.
And the other thing that's interesting to that end is there's an awful lot, unfortunately, of stolen cards by people that know the people whose card, either somebody in the family or somebody who has access. And frankly, the consumer typically won't file a police report if Johnny the nephew took the card.
I'm going to hide my wallet. I'm not going to leave it out on my view. But no, I didn't think about that. You would think it was mostly people, getting your identity by getting your Social Security, right? Is that common?
It really is, and that's why many financial institutions will say you have to file a police report in order for us to reimburse.
We got about 45 seconds. The police have a lot to do. Let's face it. It's a tough job. But it's in a sense they would think, well, it's not physical, it's not violent. Are you finding any more police doing more about it, or is it just tough?
No, it's usually just a matter of filing the report so you have it on file.
All right, we're out of here. But this great update. I learned something. Mobile wallet. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.